Come on. Um, Man, I don't know what the heck. Have you gotten a notice that we're live streaming?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it took a long time for it to give me the link. Hello, YouTube folks. Just got to
Mhm.
tweet out this YouTube link. We'll be able to start the podcast here. All right, record. Hello and welcome to the Hawkeye Hotspot podcast here on hawkfanatic.com. It is Thursday, September 5th, 9:05 a.m. Central Time. Iowa is currently ranked 40th nationally in total offense and 50th in scoring offense. Scott Docterman from The Athletic. Is it fixed?
I can't tell if it's like with baling wire, sheet metal, and duct tape, or if it's. I guess we'll know a little bit more this week for sure in certain areas. But I tell you what, Rob, the one thing you can say is, hey, they feel good about themselves, and they should. They play in the second half. They executed at a high level. They scored touchdowns on 5 of 6 possessions. They were able to run when they wanted to. They were able to complete 13 of 14 passes, and the only incompletion was a drop. And overall, you've got to be like, okay, here we are. This is good game one, 40-0. Everything you want out of your team.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think everybody with, that's got some type of objectivity is looking at it and say, yes, it's Illinois State. The degree of difficulty obviously raises a ton this week with Iowa State coming to town, and we'll talk more about that. But we talked last week, Scott, about how you process what you see against Illinois State. What does it mean? It means, as you said, they got off to a good start. The alternative was that the second half continued to look like the first half did, and then would have been a whole different vibe coming out of Kinnick Stadium on Saturday if it was like 13-0, if they would have added like a touchdown in the second half. But there was so much there in the second half that I think it kind of wiped out that first half. But we also saw some things in that first half that were kind of troubling as well. So again, this week against Iowa State is certainly, a huge test for this offense. But to go in with some confidence, and I think probably most importantly, Scott, for Cade McNamara, not having played much in the last 2 years, you could just tell it felt good to him, and I was happy for him. And this is something he particularly can build on.
I thought that there were a lot of positives, and I think let's start with him. I mean, in the first half, he was like 8 of 17. He missed some throws. He looked like his fundamentals were bad again, and it was like, oh, got to do this again. But towards the mid part of the second quarter, I thought that they were actually making some pretty good moves. That they were playing well at times in that second quarter, but then they would get caught with a penalty or primarily penalties, and that really stunted some drives. And those are things that you expect in the first game, but they still are frustrating. And then in the second half, he was on point. He looked good. He made good throws and then he trusted his players. I mean, there was a throw, the second touchdown to Vanderzee, who I thought was a real revelation for Iowa. The second one is one of those where, hey, good job scoring. Don't ever throw that pass again unless it's like a Hail Mary or something like that.
Yeah, it's the no, yeah.
Because you go against good DBs, that's going to get, at best knocked down. But that said, they scored and they looked good doing it. And he wasn't sacked. But he did show a breakaway, a scramble that He had a couple scrambles, one that got called back that was really good, another one that was 12 yards. It was a good run. And then the other one right before the end of the third quarter, last play of the third quarter, he was able to evade the rush, get out of the pocket, make one of those plays outside the pocket. And Zach Ortworth took it for 38, 40 yards, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, that's what Iowa's needed and lacked in the pocket really since Beathard, because Stanley was could move a little bit. He's a very physical guy, but not a real athletic in space guy.
He would be more just pushing people off of him like Ohio State.
I know.
They bounce off of Nate.
Yeah, he's like Drew Bledsoe, just like big and lumbering at times. Whereas this was like an athletic move that he got out and made it happen. Of course, I noticed some people complaining that Brendan Sullivan didn't play. Why do we have him in there in the fourth quarter? I'm like, this is a new offense. He hasn't played in a year. Yes, I know you can get injured, but you can get injured stepping on the field, let alone in the fourth quarter. And you need to have him get as many reps as possible with that offense.
Plus, how valuable are fourth quarter reps in a blowout for Brendan Sullivan against Illinois State? I know it'd be nice to get him a few snaps, but I don't know how much value. They're working him in practice. They're preparing him in case something happens to Cade. I don't think that, if he got in for a series or two against Illinois State is going to make a big difference if he has to go in there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one extra series. Okay, let's say he throws two passes. It's 2 for 2. Throws a 10-yard touchdown pass. That doesn't make him automatically better than he was if he didn't do it. So I'm perfectly fine with the way it all played out. Yeah, that it was more beneficial for Cade McNamara just to have more snaps with the offense as long as he can, and then that could actually parlay into what is a real pivotal game this week for Iowa.
Yeah, no question, and we'll get to that a little bit more. I don't know if you had a chance to go back and watch the game. I only had a chance to go back and watch the first half. And that's really what I wanted to see, Scott. I wanted to see formations, player personnel groups, and the first series to me was, I went back and I charted it. I don't have it in front of me and I apologize for that. But the first 3 plays, the 3 and out, the first play was 9 guys inside the hashes for Iowa's offense. And Illinois State was just completely in the box. The second play, this is basically inside the hash marks. Not completely in, but like right there. The second play, 11 guys in the box. Third play, 11 guys in the hashes. Trips up top, 3 guys. Weechin in motion. Defense just stayed, didn't move, didn't have to move at all during any of those plays. It was positioned where it needed to be positioned. So I'm like, so what happens after this? So then I'm watching the second series and the third series. And then you talked about like the second quarter when things start to open up a little bit. They start to spread things out. They figure out where the blitz is coming from, better blitz pickup. It was almost like an evolution in that first half where Iowa said, listen, we're going to try to pound the ball 11 on 11. It didn't work. Scott left, and I didn't even know. I just kept talking. Let's see if he's back. Sorry about that. But I'll continue talking until he comes back. Yeah, it was all right. We got Scott back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm back on.
How much did you get? Yeah, you locked up again here. Let me check my Wi-Fi. Yeah, I look good. I think I'm strong. I'm gonna. All right, folks. I'm gonna stop the podcast. You'll still see us.
All right. You want me to? I think I'm gonna restart my computer if that's on.
Yeah, I just stopped the recording.
Okay.
Paused it. So whenever you come back, we can just start again.
Okay, I'll just do that.
Okay.
Just do a restart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, YouTube folks. We need a little bit of a break here as Scott reboots his computer and comes back. We'll pick it up where we left off. I'm going to get some more coffee. I suggest you do the same. La-di-da. For the YouTube folks, I can read off some game notes. How about that? All three of Cade McNamara's TD passes went to newcomer receivers. How about that? Vander Zee and Jacob Gill. That was Caleb Johnson's fifth 100-yard game rushing. He rushed for 119 yards on 11 carries and 2 touchdowns. He's good. Still waiting on Scott, so I gotta fill time here. Since the start of the 2015 season, Iowa is 72-2 when leading by 8 points at any point of the game. Thank you, defense, is what that is. What else do we have? The Hawkeyes have won 7 of the last 8 and 8 of the last 10 meetings over Iowa State, dating back to 2013. Last season's win in Ames was Kirk Ferentz's 200th career victory. All right, Scott's back. Let's get him back in here. Recording's still paused, so you're only hearing me on the YouTube feed at this point. There he is.
Let's hope for the better.
All right, YouTube folks, we're going back on recording the podcast. So I was reading off game notes while we were you to get back to entertain the people on YouTube. All right, we're back. Some technical difficulties, but we'll pick up seamlessly. Scott, it looked like Iowa tried. I'll condense what I was saying earlier. It's on the podcast, and you may have missed some of what I was going through, but basically, Iowa's offense needed to kind of figure out what Illinois State was doing with the blitz, and 2, build off of what it was showing early in the game. And I thought set up Illinois State beautifully. You talked about the second quarter as things started to open up, started to spread them out, use more motion. And I thought it worked great. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if they intentionally came out and said, hey, we're just going to friggin' power through Illinois State, go 11 in the hashes and just pound it through, and then spread them out. Or they figured if it works, we'll keep with pounding it. And if it doesn't, then we'll open it up. Either way, I thought it worked well, and I was pleased with what I saw play calling wise, particularly in the second quarter and the second half.
For sure. And I think early on, you just saw a stacked box that the Illinois State, Brock's back. All you have to do is watch the tape and say, we're not afraid of anybody Iowa has on the outside. And we're not sure, they probably watched your cut-ups of Kids Day and thought we're not afraid of McNamara either. So now it's just a matter of we need to stop the run because we cannot allow this team to really brutalize us up front. And Brock's back's been a part of some of those games where they did that. So that's what they did. And then Iowa made them pay for it. Iowa was able to hit some good passes. I mean, I think, what I really liked out of the receivers, Reese Vander Zee obviously was really effective, but him and Jacob Gill made 3 slants that contested catches over the middle that I thought, where they got hit. And I thought, but they held on to the ball. That is big time. That's exactly what you need. And then you have, one of the best tight ends of the country. And I think Addison Ostrenga is not that far off. No. So making tough contested catches really helps your offense because then it gives the O-line motivation. I know that they've really liked Jacob Gill since day one because he's doing that stuff. And now with, Vander Zee kind of having his coming out party. They're still missing Seth Anderson. They bring back Caleb Brown this week. Caden Weegan was sick. So, they had a lot of different things going on, and yet they were able to move the ball. And once they were able to establish the pass, the run was there. And then they were able to take advantage of that. And they're going to have to face that a lot this year. And it may be a tough sledding in most games early, even against inferior or opponents that aren't up to Iowa's caliber. But overall, they were able to overcome it. From last 3 quarters, they pretty much dominated the game.
Yeah, and the offensive line didn't have, like I was saying, that first quarter, those drives that I reviewed, they didn't have much of a chance. We've talked time and time again on the podcast about putting your players in position to succeed. Offensive line didn't have much of a chance early in that game. There were blitzes coming. And to Kamari Moulton's credit. He picked up most of the blitzes, but they had two guys coming from different angles. Again, Brock Specht is a good defensive coach, and he had a good game plan, and it worked early. And then Iowa was able to counter it and adjust and made some really nice halftime adjustments. But when the offensive line had equal numbers, I thought it played pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a numbers game. And it was that way all year last year, which is why the running game was such a grind, because the passing game couldn't take advantage of anything. And now if the passing game can get off to the point where they're making plays the way they did the other day, and I'm not suggesting that Cade McNamara go 13 of 14 in any half the rest of the way, but if he can go 10 for 14, that's still pretty good. And that's something I think that can really help this team grow. And then if it becomes a mano a mano, even in the zone, then you feel like, all right, now we've got a chance. And then you start to incorporate your scheme. One of the things I saw on the rewatch, I try to document it during the game, and then I document it even more so on the rewatch, was just the numbers of what they did motion wise and trades. Trades are like when the tight end will, kind of line up, and then all of a sudden he'll just move to the other side, and it's kind of before everything gets set, and then there's motion. Well, Iowa was pretty vanilla with it. I would say they did more motion than they did last year, but it wasn't a lot of motion. There wasn't a lot of trades and motion in the same play. That's coming this week. That's coming. So I think it was just kind of getting used to everything. And then that'll be really effective if they can back off the front, the second and third levels. That'll be really effective for the running game.
You always wonder, Scott, going into the season, who are going to be the surprises? Who's somebody that we're not really counting on to be a factor? Well, as you mentioned, Reese Vanderzee had a hell of a coming out party. And I don't know I'm sure this has been reported, and I tweeted it out on Saturday as well. He's a kid that played high school baseball through the summer and showed up here at the end of July.
No, I asked him about that, and he wasn't able to play because he was injured. And he came to June, because I asked him in the press conference. I said, "So how much baseball did you play?" And he's like, "I was hurt. I got hurt at the end of track, and I wanted to play, but I couldn't play. And I figured, let's just go ahead and go." But he had an injury, and so it kept him even behind through the summer. And then to be able to do that, first true freshman under Kirk ever to start the season opener, because I went back through them all. Yeah. And then, of course, catch 2 touchdown passes in your debut. That's pretty important as well. And he didn't look out of place. He didn't look like, he ran the wrong route or anything like that. If he did, we didn't notice.
Yeah, and I thought, it looked like he was, in tune with everybody on the offense. It did, like you said, I didn't see any when I'm on the field, especially when I'm down there, I'm looking at like guys and especially the younger players. He didn't look like he was confused about anything. And there were a few times where I saw him look over and ask Lachey or somebody of one of the veterans, "Hey," and they were on it right away. So it was really nice to see that. And I thought he and Gill both were committed to blocking, as you said, which is nice. Yeah. You're going to play. You're not going to play if you don't block. Those guys did that. Weechin, you don't have to worry about that. Kid's a gamer. He'll throw his head in there on the block whenever he can. So with Brown coming back, I mean, it's as good as I felt about the receivers in quite some time. But again, it's one game.
Yeah, it's one game, but it's a feel-good game. It's like, okay, you got over your slump, for the multi-year slump offensively where you felt good about it. And, I know last year they scored 41 against Western Michigan, and they've had other games where they've kind of broke out a little bit, but this was different. This was the first time where you felt like, all right, maybe they got something here, with Vanderzee and with Gill. I mean, 2 guys who weren't even on their roster, weren't even on campus 3 months ago, and here they are, and they're showing out, and they're playing well. And then, Caleb Brown comes back this week. Seth Anderson's still not available. Do
we know what's up with Seth Anderson?
I didn't.
It's kind of murky.
Yeah, it's just he's from what Kirk had kind of said, I guess, that not this week, but they're hopeful. I just don't know. But he's been pretty injured pretty much his whole entire career here.
Yeah, I know.
And then last year when he did get to play, other than the first pass of the season, it was just kind of they didn't do much with him, and it wasn't his fault, I don't think. But no, overall, you look at what they've got and you figure, they got 4 or 5 guys that they're going to make plays. And then again, you have one of the best tight ends in the country. And the other thing that they stayed true to the tenets of what Iowa does offensively. 2/3 of their plays came in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. There are a few others where it was either 3 tight ends or a fullback and 2 tight ends were on the field as well. So, they're looking at, 3/4 of their offense contain multiple tight ends on the field. And yet it didn't look generic. It didn't look boring, stale, vanilla, anything. And that's what you wanted with Tim Lester, is still be true to who you are, but make it look different. And I think they were able to do that in a vanilla way. And this week you'll see them do what they really want to do.
Defense was the Iowa defense, pitched a shutout. I asked Nick Jackson on Tuesday, when you get a shutout, what's film like? I mean, you still have to find things. And he's like, yeah, we always find things we can. And that's what this Iowa defense is at a stage now where the guys are so used to each other and used to the game and used to what they have to do that they play so fast that it comes to the point now where you can take your time to hone in on what the opponent is doing and be super prepared. And they look pretty prepared on Saturday, and I think they'll be prepared for Iowa State too. Obviously, again, the degree of difficulty, particularly at wide receiver, goes up a great deal, and running back and quarterback.
Yeah.
And offensive line.
Yeah, there's a lot of tight end for sure. They've got better players on offense, no question, than what the Illinois. This is one of those things where if Illinois State, if they played 8 quarters, it might have been 80-0 or 100-0 or something. I mean, they weren't going to score on that. They didn't even get in anywhere near field goal range. I mean, they barely crossed midfield. So Iowa State does present some more challenges, no question. But I'll say this, that Iowa State probably has more concerns after week 1 than Iowa does about itself, which could be a good and a bad thing. It could mean, hey, we need to really hone in and work on these things where, Iowa would say, we feel pretty good. And, so that's always kind of funny. But
this is that week where everybody's like, hey, this is the week where we make the most improvement.
Yeah.
Week 1 to week 2, everybody's in practice going, all right, we're going to make a much of improvement. But that's relative.
Yeah, exactly. It is relative. And 2 areas that Iowa State, to me, really struggled. I rewatched it, and I was in Ames on Tuesday. Stopping the run and running the ball. And that's problematic when you're going against Iowa. And it's not that they can't be successful in one or both areas, but those are areas that you would expect against a lower level competition to be able to thrive in. Mm-hmm. That it's the execution, it's the mistakes, it's the dumb stuff, illegal motion and procedure and jumping off sides and missing the snap count and holding. And, those are things that you just kind of go, well, that happens week 1. Not giving up a 12-minute drive in the second quarter to North Dakota State where they convert 4 third downs and they have 22 some odd plays, or not being outrushed the way they were and having 86 rushing yards against North Dakota. Those are things.
Time of possession was pretty lopsided, wasn't it? Well, I know Iowa State scored on 2 plays on their first drive, so that changes things a little bit. But I did notice the time of possession was in North Dakota's favor. I think.
Yeah, it was. And that's, again, they ran for 160, 170 yards or something like that. So they were able to pound away. Now, granted, they only scored 3 points and they only got it on that one long drive, but it's enough of an issue where Iowa State could say, okay, we've got these problem areas. We need to ratchet it up and practice and fix it. And plus they have some major injury issues. Because if they don't, that this is the type of game where they could really get pounded away at. And the problem that they're facing is the injuries and the issues that they had the other day. Kind of, if they were against a different team that was more of a spread look, they could get away with it a little bit more. But now you're going against a team that's very physical, that likes to run the football and will take advantage of that. Now they've got to figure out, how do we get through this? I think their defensive line is okay. I don't know that they have a dude. I don't know that they have a Will McDonald. Tyler O is pretty good. And he might cause some problems. I think J.R. Singleton's solid. Dominic Orange is okay. But the second level, they're just shredded. Caleb Bacon's out for a long time. Will McLaughlin's not coming back. They've got guys who are, they're down to like their fourth and fifth linebackers. And if Iowa can somehow up front dominate the line of scrimmage, you like your chances, because Iowa State's strength is obviously in the secondary and its safety. But if they're making tackles 8 and 10 yards down the field, you're dead in the water, no question.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to jump into some more Iowa State here after the break. Just wrap quick on defense and special teams in the opener. Aaron Graves, obviously, we had a feeling he'd be taking a step forward this year. He certainly showed that in the opener. Iowa, I thought, Scott and I have talked a number of times about defensive line depth, particularly on the interior. No issues on Saturday. I thought they looked good. They got pressure up the middle and on the edge. And then the back seven, strong. I thought Drew Stevens comes out, boom, hits that 40-plus yarder right away. Great to see. He struggled from 40-plus yards last year. Boom, gets the second one before halftime. It gives you at least 6 points going into halftime. A for Drew. Reese Dakin, a little bit wild on that first punt, but overall, again, he's not going to be Tory Taylor, at least not this season, but he just has to be competent, and he was.
Yeah. No worries, no concerns. I think Drew Stevens, after kind of a sluggish, inconsistent finish to the season last year, he didn't get a chance in the bowl game or the Big Ten championship to kick, but he came through and looked good, looked the part. And Reese Dakin, first game in the United States. I think first in a football
first
game.
Time playing football, right?
Yeah,
American football.
Exactly, and he's doing it in front of a full house, and there's a lot of. You got to be concerned with some of this stuff, but he did fine. He's not on the Ray Guy list this week, but that's okay. He didn't get anything blocked, didn't have a major shank. Just now that you got those little jitters out of the way, now go and do the same thing this week, and maybe you'll hit a couple that makes everybody go, damn, you can't get away from this kind of guy, I mean, after all, punting is winning,
Damn right it is.
But I'm wearing orange and navy, so
yes. The legend is gone, and the new guy's trying to build his legend. And
but he was there. Tory was there,
yeah,
on Saturday, so I talked to him for a little bit, so it was good to see him. And I don't know how often he'll be back. So this always happens where players who just leave the program, they get their first game, they come back, they check it out, and then all of a sudden it's like, they go play NFL, and then it's like, good luck. And
then they come back like Sean Green and Adrian Claiborne for the Hall of Fame inductions.
Yeah. Which I would expect Tory Taylor to be a part of.
Yeah, he's got a chance. I like his chances.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. Systems Unlimited, thank you for the support of the podcast, and more importantly, the great work you've done in our community for over 50 years. We're going to hear from a few more of our sponsors now, and we'll be back on the other side to break down the Iowa State game. Hang in there. We are back to let you know that switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights, we switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dance. Well, that's a stretch, but what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Chad Birch, right here in Iowa City, can switch you over so you can start saving today. Chad and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. With Chad Birch, it's easy to switch and save. Just give him a call when you want the real deal, like a good neighbor. State Farm is there. And then we're also waiting on one of our new sponsors, Black Angel Restaurant in Iowa City, to send us a script or a recording, but they are on board with us now, being sponsored. Scott and his daughter ate there a few weeks ago. Positive signs, thumbs up from Scott. So check it out. Perez Brothers. They had El Banditos, Perez Tacos, great food. Check it out when you're in Iowa City. They even serve Iowa State fans. So if you're an Iowa State fan listening to this and you're in town this week, corner of Iowa Avenue and Governor, right? Yes, Iowa Avenue and Governor. Go check it out. Good food, good fun. You'll enjoy it. You'll thank us later.
Yes.
All right, Scott. We talked a little bit about the Iowa State defense and how that matches up with the Iowa State offense will be interesting because this isn't as good of an Iowa State defense as they've had in recent years. They've had graduation, and like Scott said, I'm not sure they have a dude up front. So it's a good opportunity for Iowa's offense, but it won't be a cakewalk. And I'm sure, as we said, Iowa State will make adjustments and do things to improve between week 1 and week 2. And both teams will throw some things at the other that they're not expecting. And sometimes those are the plays that swing games like this. But this is kind of a situation, Scott, where really Iowa State needs to turn it a little bit in this series. I mean, Iowa's won 7 of 8 and 8 of 10. Going back to 2013, so that's a decade. And they've taken back control of this series that was pretty even for a while.
Yeah, they have. And I think we can look at it objectively, Rob, that when Kirk came here, Iowa was down, Iowa State was up. Then he turned it. Then there was kind of this, other than like the 2008 through 2010 era for Iowa, it was kind of bookended by some kind of mediocrity. I would say mediocrity player-wise, mediocrity team-wise, and the results show it. I mean, where their high mark is like 8 wins. And that's where Iowa State was able to win some of those games, in 2007 against the team that finished 6-6, 2011, where, Iowa won 7 games, 2012, Iowa won 4, even 2014, Iowa won 7. So they were able to win against mid-level to lower level Iowa teams. But since then, 2015 onward, Iowa is a much better program than it was then. The players prove it out. The results prove it out. And Iowa State has also improved significantly as a program, and they're close, but they're losing a lot of these games. And the significant factor since 2015 onward is turnovers. Iowa, in that span, for winning 7 out of 8, they're +9. That they've every year they've either been 0 or plus in the turnover ratio. And you look at like 19. When the ball hits, the punt returner. 2021, which was the biggest game in history of this series, +4. They had 4 turnovers on Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. Their best players are having significant mistakes. In the last 2 years, was even. Iowa was 1-1 last year, and it was 3-3 2 years ago when Iowa State won. And that was Iowa's offense couldn't have played worse if they tried. I mean, tripping over the 3-yard line, fumbling over the goal line. I mean, they missed a field goal at the end to tie it. So they could have won that one too. And so turnovers have been the differentiator here between these two teams. Now, Iowa State this year, offensively, they're pretty good. They've got some potential there, I think, especially in the passing game to create some challenges. And if we want to go in this area, I would say that if there's not.
Let's break down what you see from the Iowa offense against Iowa State's defense and vice versa. Let's start with Iowa State's offense against Iowa State or Iowa's defense, because I think that's probably the strength on strength here. Yeah. And then the other ones are question mark against question mark.
Exactly.
The other way.
This is where Iowa State, in order to have success offensively, it has to be patient, but it has to be pass first. It doesn't necessarily need to spread Iowa out, but it needs to throw Iowa out. It means it needs to throw swing passes. It needs to spread the field to the point where Iowa's covering wide ground, and because they have good athletes. Jaden Higgins is an NFL guy. Jalen Knowles, an NFL guy. Brent Bramer is one of the better young tight ends in the country, kind of in a Strenga mold, if not maybe even a little higher there. Eli Green, the guy Iowa wanted, the North Dakota State transfer, really good receiver. So, and they've got a quarterback who's efficient, who's accurate. He wasn't great last week, accuracy, but I think he can be better. So they need to get the ball out of his hands quick and let their playmakers do something and be patient doing it, because Iowa's not going to give up big plays, maybe one, and they're going to have to do that. And then running the football, it was an issue for them last week. I think Sama's a really good running back.
Yeah.
But you know what? They've stopped Breece Hall. They stopped David Montgomery. They've stopped good running backs before. And
a lot of that's the matchup between Iowa's defensive line and Iowa State's offensive line,
which I give it a huge, major force to. Iowa's front seven is the most dominant unit on the field in either side of the ball.
Yep.
And so Iowa State's going to still have to try to run, because it's going to have to try to chew some clock, keep its defense off the field, and keep Iowa honest. But it can't rely on the run. It can't just 1st and 10, let's run the ball, 2nd and 6, run it again. That's just not going to be a way for them to be successful. It's going to be like, 2nd and 2, okay, we'll run, and then it's 3rd and 1, run again, and then 1st and 10, throw. It's just, it has to keep Iowa honest. It has to move the chains. It has to move the clock to keep its defense from getting brutalized for a while. That's the way that they win. They're as much as explosive as they are, and they can hit a couple of explosive plays, but they're not going to hit a ton on Iowa. Iowa just doesn't give that up. And Iowa's secondary, corner is a little bit of a question in this matchup, but the safety and Cash are not a question. They know what they've got. So overall, Iowa's defense is the best unit on the field. Iowa State's offense is second, but I'm much more of a pro Iowa defense. They've proven it. They've proven it for a long time.
In case you're wondering, and we'll talk about our awful week 1 picks at the end of the pod, but if you're looking for the over-under total on Saturday's game, it opened at 36.5 and is now down to 35.
Okay.
So the odds makers are expecting points to be at a premium, and that's probably a smart approach to this game. They're not buying into Iowa's offensive explosion last week is what they're telling you. But and that makes sense. A low scoring game makes a lot of sense for sure. I was laughing earlier when you were talking because I wanted to check out the Iowa State. I love the SIDs that come up with stuff like this. Here's the note from Iowa State's. They don't have a lot about their matchups with Iowa recently.
Yeah.
ISU is 4-8 in the last 12 games against the Hawkeyes, but the Cyclones have won 3 of 5 games at Kinnick during that stretch.
Yeah.
There you go. If you're looking for something to hang your hat on, if you're a Cyclone fan, hey, 3 out of 5 at Kinnick. But Scott mentioned some of the circumstances around them.
Well, they've only lost twice in the last 12 years. Because they didn't play 4 years ago, and then 2 years ago they won, and then they won in 12 and 14. But then they got annihilated in 16, and then 18 was a defensive struggle because of offensive ineptness, I would say, more than anything else. That's a game that could happen too. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of funny to look at those notes.
You got a chance to go to Ames on Tuesday. I was in Iowa City, so we had both of those things covered. You kind of know what you get in Iowa City. You get the players that are tutored by Wickstead's PR firm and come out there and say nothing about Iowa State and try to sell us that it's another game. Yeah. What did you get? What did you get in Ames on Tuesday? Same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. They've under Matt Campbell, they've become more professional that way.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is they've had more success on the field, so they see the big picture a little bit better, more clearly than they did 10 years ago or whatever.
And I think McCarney and Rhodes put a lot more. Not that Campbell doesn't see this as an important game, but I think he approaches it more like Kirk than Paul Rhodes and Dan McCarney.
Matt knows the value of this game. He understands it. He wants to win it in the worst way. He knows it's a rivalry game. All the things that Iowa State fans want from him, he gets it. But he also is smart enough to understand that, you know what, they're going to play 10 more games at least after this. And you can't make it your absolute Super Bowl and have an emotional letdown that carries over. Now, in their case,
2002.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great example for both teams.
Yeah. They started off hot. They were 6-1. They beat Iowa. They beat Nebraska. They should have beaten Florida State. They had a bad call at the goal line, and then they flatlined. They just went right in the tank. And Iowa went the opposite way. They gave up a 17-point halftime lead and lost, for the fifth straight year to Iowa State. It was killer. And it was like, but they ended up, moving on. And I think that's important. And Matt Campbell has shown, because they have lost 7 out of, under him, it's 6 out of 7 because they didn't play. 7, yeah. They've had pretty good years after that. They've had, really, significant seasons. So I think in his case, he's done a remarkable job of doing that. And I think what I saw from him, reading body language, I think he understands the challenge and the task at hand. That doesn't mean he's surrendering by any stretch. And I think the players are excited. They want to come to Kinnick. They know what they're facing. They all talked about the environment and how crazy it is. And we know it's the craziest environment of the year, no question, because there'll be 25 to 30,000 extra people in Iowa City partying that don't even go to the game. But excuse me, I think it's, he's seen, he's kind of fighting a cold, but you could just see it that there's some concern there that they know that they're going to have to play really, really well in order to give them a chance to win in the fourth quarter.
So there was some preseason momentum for Iowa State as a potential playoff team, chance to win the Big 12. It seems like that's not as many people are talking about that now after week 1 as they were preseason. Is that the injuries? Is that how they looked against North Dakota, or is it just other teams looked better week 1, so people aren't really thinking about Iowa State?
I think we throw so much analysis into week 1, because we haven't seen football in 9 months, and then all of a sudden, and they're playing an FCS team, and they looked okay. They won 21-3. They only allowed a field goal. They scored on 2 plays, and boom, touchdown. And then
catch on the catch on the first. Who was that? Was that Higgins?
Higgins, yeah.
They caught it in between the 2 D-backs for North Dakota. I was like, how the hell did he catch that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they have great receivers. And those are the question. Those are the question areas for Iowa is, can Jamari Harris and can TJ Hall, or if John Nestor's in there, Deshaun Lee, how they perform against them, because even though they're not going to be locked up in man coverage, they're going to be locked up with them a lot.
And you got a good tight end running underneath them.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to get some drives. They're going to move the ball, from the 20 to the 40. Can they punch it in? Iowa's red zone defense is really good. Well, can they get field goals? Probably. But how many? Just kind of.
What are their special teams like?
Punter is really good. Kicker, I don't know much about kicker, honestly. Kyle they've got a freshman, so he's going to be in
no big deal. 70,000 at Kinnick. Rivalry game.
Yeah.
He'll be his emotions will be in check. No question.
Yeah. Nothing at stake. Cal Canardi. But I think the other part is that when you look at stakes, though, the stakes are very, very high for Iowa and less so for Iowa State. Because as we said, Iowa State injured, They go on the road and let's say they lose a hard fought game, touchdown, even 10 points on the road at Iowa. That's not a sin. They have a break. They have a week off. Then they go play at Arkansas State. The Big 12 has got good teams. There's no Ohio State there. There's no,
Oklahoma or Texas. I don't think are in that league anymore.
No, they're so there's Texas Tech and there's Oklahoma State. Those two are in the SEC. So, and in years past that they've really built themselves. Brocktober. Back in the day, in October and November, they've been a really good program. And I even asked that question of Matt. I said, what do you want to see out of your team other than result in that outcome? What do you want to see from your team? And he's like, grit, toughness, fight. I want to see, how do we handle a tough environment? All those types of things that are really important intangibles for your team to grow on, because that's how you grow and go on the road and put up a good effort and fight and maybe win. But, if not, well, did you grow as a program? In his case, they've always been able to do that. And I think if they can show it and stay injury free, then Iowa State's is not in a bad position, because after that, then they start Big 12 play at Houston, who may be the worst team in the league. They got Baylor at home. They go to West Virginia, UCF. Those are decent teams, but they're also beatable opponents. And then they get into November. Those are when they're playing their better teams. At Utah, they're playing Kansas State at home, KU on the road. Okay, but you should be playing your best football at that point. And Iowa State, if they are, then they'll be competitive in those games. So I think in Iowa State's case, the result is important personally, but to the big picture, it's less so. Iowa, it's critical, because if you can't, Iowa State, you can look at and say, yeah, they got a chance to win the Big 12. Iowa, even in their best years, you can't say, well, they're going to win the Big 10. I mean, there's too much traffic there, and there's Ohio State, by the way. So
USC looked pretty good.
USC looked really good. Oregon looked terrible. Michigan looked rough, but they still those Penn State looked good against West Virginia. So they still have all those teams. Plus, oh, by the way, Wisconsin's still Wisconsin, and Nebraska looks better. So Northwestern is a pest as always.
It's just hard to win an 18-team league.
Yeah.
You got to finish in the top 2 just to make the championship. And that's hard.
It is, like Steve Alford said, it's hard.
Very hard.
Yeah.
I think Saturday, Scott, and maybe this is too simplified or simplifying it too much, and probably goes without saying, but I'm an idiot and will say it anyway. Washington State's got to protect the football. I mean, it's particularly this matchup. There are other years where it felt like maybe they were a better team at this point in the season, especially with the way Iowa's offense has been in recent years. But this feels like Iowa has an advantage here. Iowa is at home. It's got one of the best units in the country on defense. That's something you can always hang your hat on, even if the offense struggles. If Iowa State gives Iowa extra chances and loses chances by doing that, I don't see any path to victory.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I mean, they've got to play a clean game, and again, the only time, Rob, since 2006 that they've had the advantage in turnover margin was 2014, and that was by 1.
Wow.
Every other year, Iowa has been +3, +2, +2, +1, and all the way up to +4 in that game where it was a top 10 matchup in 2021. And they had Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. They looked really good, really difficult team to compete with. And yet Iowa was able to get them to turn. And a lot of that I thought was pressure, especially with Brock Purdy. I thought he was pressing too much and he was throwing to places that he normally doesn't throw. And Charlie Kohler, they had really good players. And with Iowa State,
look at the Castro play last year.
Yeah, exactly. They went to 17-0 on the road. 17-0 at Kinnick. That's going to be a little bit even more difficult.
Yeah.
If they do that. And then ultimately, the matchup that, I mean, how is Iowa's offense going to play? Is it going to play, like it did in the second half? I mean, if it does, it's a blowout. If it plays good, similarly to what it played in the second half, and I think they still win. And Iowa State, again, giving up so much running yards to North Dakota and getting drug on. That's not a good sign for them. And if Iowa, comes out and Caleb Johnson plays well, which he did in the second half when he came off his little suspension.
I asked Kamari Moulton on Tuesday, I was like, how would you tackle Caleb? And he goes, I would definitely chop him. No way do I go up top on Caleb. And I think Illinois State learned that the hard way.
Yeah, exactly. He's physical.
Yeah.
So if you see
if you've ever seen Caleb like without pads on and just like at media, he is ripped.
Yes, exactly. So I think Iowa could do some serious damage in the run game. And if you're Iowa State, you can't play a 3-3-5 against this team. I mean, Illinois State tried to crowd the box. They tried to switch more from a 3-man line to a 4-man line or stand up 4. Iowa State's going to have to do the same thing. And I think they're going to have to bring up Bo Freeler. They're kind of middle safety. They play like that 5 D-backs where it's like 3 safeties high and then 2, in kind of the mid area. You're going to have to bring somebody down. You just cannot play that, or you're going to risk getting just drug, for a long time, and it'll end really quickly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, Iowa State, Matt Campbell's made a point to hang his hat on defense as well as at Iowa State, and they'll make adjustments this week.
Yeah.
There's, like Scott said, there's only so much you can do personnel wise if you're injured, especially on that second level. There's only so much he can do there. But there's ways, and he got too. I mean, you think about, defensive coordinator is he's not Phil Parker, but he's damn close.
Yeah.
And he'll come up with a way to maybe compensate for what went wrong last week. And will it be enough to stop Iowa? We don't know. But if Iowa tries to attack them kind of where North Dakota did, my guess is Iowa State's found a way to plug that hole, and Iowa may have to go up and attack a different area, which I think it's capable of doing.
What they'll probably do, and this is how I would attack if I was Iowa, is try to put the second level in conflict in every single down, which is probably a lot of motion. Yep. Try to get their eyes in the backfield, try to see, and then they take a false step. And then if you run the ball, then they get blindsided by the guard, and you could really bury them at that point. Or play action pass, throw to the tight end. I mean, Iowa's got a lot of options there with that because of the second level. And then if they get them on their heels, then it's bully ball up front, and Iowa can do a nice job there. And I like the way that they're running. Sometimes they're running a little bit wider. They're running both mid zone, not so much outside slant, but they're running kind of more mid zone. And then
the mid zone, I noticed a lot.
And I liked it. I think it can work. So,
and I think Moulton can hit those, especially if they spread them out a little bit more. I noticed when they spread them out a little bit more, there were those lanes there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And the best one is when you're just running like inside zone, basically hand off and punch him right in the mouth.
Yeah.
LaShawn Williams is as good as they've had at that position at doing that. I mean, he's physical, right? So they've got good dudes in the backfield. And I do think the line is better. I do. I still, even the other day, even though they were struggling early, but it was kind of the combination of one guy missing his block, or a penalty. It was just like, and that's what happens. You just get one little thing, and that the one little things a lot of times get corrected week 1 to week 2.
No doubt. We'll talk. We'll give our predictions on this game when we do our picks here in a minute. We lastly wanted to touch on before we get to our picks. This woman in Indianapolis, she was supposed to have a wake-up call when she got to the WNBA, and I think she's waking everybody else up, Scott. Caitlin Clark is just amazing. You look at it's kind of like with Iowa's offense in week 1. I knew when I looked at the post-game notes, I was going to see first time the offense did this since 2019. First time the offense did this. And so when you look at Caitlin, she's doing something like almost every night. first time this is done. First time a rookie's done this. Only the third player in WNBA history to do something. It's every night. And it's fun to watch them come together as a team and gel. They're in the playoffs.
Playoffs? Are you kidding me?
They're in the playoffs. And Scott and I wore the W coming off the break. She was rested and she looks her shot. I think the thing I noticed the most, Scott, is her 3-pointer. Yeah. She's got legs again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about how long she has played, you know, going all the way back, you know, they went on a year ago at this time. They were in Croatia or, you know, Italy. I mean, not this time, maybe like 13 months ago. Mm-hmm. Crossover at Kinnick, all the attention that they had, all the games, all the way up through April. And then, oh, by the way, the next week you're getting drafted and then you're going to the WNBA and then you have all this petty jealousy and gaslighting and gatekeeping and just like she had, cheap shots. I mean, like 17% of the flagrant fouls have been called against her. And that doesn't count the ones that haven't been, that really were.
She's getting some back, though. I've noticed she's handing out some hard fouls lately.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody else has. If you're gonna do that to her, she's gonna do it back. And as long as everybody just walks away and say, "Hey, that's the league. Yeah, it's physical." Fine.
Remember, that's what they tell us. It's so physical. It's the toughest league in their commercials. Which after a while, it's like, come on, you know.
I know
we get it. But how she's played out coming off the Olympic break is, you know, she's the MVP since the break. You know, and I would say she's first team all WNBA.
I don't know how she's not.
You know, I mean, Aja Wilson is the best player in the sport. Brianna Stewart, I think, is number 2.
Aja Wilson is the MVP. Yeah, and I agree with you. Yep, Brianna Stewart. Those two are at a different level right now.
But I would put her as number 3. And, you know, no offense to our columnist at The Athletic who says that both Angel and Caitlin deserve co-rookies of the year. I disagree. I think you give it to the best player in the freaking WNBA, and you know what, triple-double again. What she's been able to do. I mean, she's had 20 games of 7 and 10 or something like that, or 20 and 10, and the record is like 10.
Yeah, I know. She's going to shatter almost every record in the WNBA. She's going to own almost every offensive record in the league, other than like rebounding and stuff. Yeah, you know, some block shots, but which is defense.
Yeah,
steals, things like that. And I also think she's getting better on defense. She's starting to figure out how to defend in the league, that she can get away with some physicality and hand checks and things like that. There was adjustment period for her early where she was thinking games were going to be called like college, and she was very careful on defense. Now she knows she can get away with a little bit more, and I think it's helping her.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at statistics. She's first in the league in assists. She was 9th or 8th now. I don't know, after last night in scoring. She's 18th, I think, in rebounding, 20th in steals. I mean, you know, 3-pointers are up there. She's done so much. And, you know, for anybody to say she's not rookie of the year, they're just not watching it. They're watching it with some sort of shaded glasses that they just don't want to acknowledge that she's that good. And then the people who say, oh, she turns the ball over. Well, okay, I'll dip into this whataboutism pool and I'll say, okay, look at Angel Reese's field goal percentage. And she's missing these shots within a couple of feet of the basket. That's different than a guard, you know, missing jumpers, 3-pointers, or even driving the lane and getting fouled. Or
here's what I think. I'm an Angel Reese fan. I admit, I love watching her play. The kid can rebound.
Yeah,
just it's so fun to watch. I think her field goal percentage is going to get better. She's going to be, she gets stronger. She's going to be able to finish some of these more as time goes on. Not maybe this year, but down the road. And Caitlin is, you know, she's cutting down her turnovers. And why? Well, she's learned her teammates. Her teammates have learned her. They know where to be. You know, they're just like early in the season, it was just a lot of those turnovers were just a disconnect, and they're not happening as more. She had a couple turnovers last night that she tried to get a little fancy, you know, and it didn't work out. And those are on her. But a lot of those turnovers early in the season, some were her fault and quite a few weren't.
Yeah, exactly. They were, she was making passes that weren't caught by her teammates, or we saw them all. And it's like,
Yep.
this is what happens. Well, I think she's getting smarter, she's getting better. She's trying to do too much. I've seen her, well, I don't think it wasn't last night because I couldn't watch last night's game because it was on CBS Sports Network. We don't have it, but there was one where she was like behind the back pass in the lane, and it's like, yeah, you're getting a little cute here, but that's all right.
I
She
like
was,
that though. It's entertainment, right?
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
try something.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of NBA guys try crazy stuff, so why not? But the funny part is when people start to compare their impact. Angel Reese and Caitlin have big impact. It's not comparable. I mean, look at the attendance, look at the viewership. It's just not there. I mean, Angel, I think, will be a very good, great player in the WNBA. I mean, you cannot ignore her rebounding numbers. They are astounding, not only for a rookie, but for any player. It's astounding.
I
And
like the
then
people that say, well, she just rebounds her own misses. That's hard to
yeah,
do.
I know,
You
but
know, it's she would want to make the baskets, obviously. It's hard to get offensive rebounds.
yeah. I mean, she's special at that. She reminds me of like Rodman
Yeah. Reggie Evans.
thing, but then I also look at her as
Uh-oh, Scott's got the
yeah.
you're there. You're freezing up on me. I'm going to pause this briefly. YouTube folks, we've paused the pod till we get Scott back here. He's frozen
Okay.
in time. There he is.
Hey.
All right. Now we're going to resume. We're recording again. A little choppy today, but we've handled it with style. I don't even
Yeah.
remember what you were talking about.
Let's talk about Angel Reese. She'll get better. This will be something that'll keep the WNBA interested. I just think that I just hope that
I just
everybody
think you look at it,
appreciates.
Caitlin has had the biggest impact, arguably one of the biggest impacts in any sport throughout the history of time. But the fact that and it's unfortunate Cameron Brink for a lot of reasons got hurt. But if you would have had those three this year, because Angel has her following, Cameron has her following, obviously Caitlin has an enormous following, but that trio, and now without Cameron Brink, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark together, and Caitlin's a bigger impact. I get that, but together they've helped the popularity of this league more than it's probably ever happened in the history of the league.
Oh, for sure. They've had great players, Rob, and we know them all. But does that mean, we know there's great golfers, we know there's great tennis players, we know there's great baseball players, but does that mean that I'm going to watch them? Not necessarily. Great hockey players, we know, but doesn't make me want to say, well, I'm going to clear my table to watch them. But that's what's happening with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I think a lot of people, even Iowa fans who hate Angel Reese, will tune into the Sky because they want to cheer against her. And that's good. That's what's great about sports.
Whatever gets the eyeballs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's healthy. I'd like to see Caitlin get her flowers from people, slopes of the world and stuff like that. Just knock it off. So
let's get to the picks. We've put this off long enough. We've put off the embarrassment of this long enough. So you guys decide what you want to do. You can go opposite of what we tell you based on last week's results, or you can think that Scott and I now have knowledge based on our crappy picks last week and will be better this week. So you're better off just going on your own. All right, Scott's locked. We're locked up, people. Scotty's locked up again on the video. I'm sure you guys can see that on YouTube. We'll get him back here. He may have to to reboot, but we've paused the podcast at least. And we are now just streaming on YouTube. I'll go back to the notes. You guys want some? Oh, Scott's signing back in. You want some Iowa State notes? Rocco Beck completed. Oh, there he is. He's back. I was starting to get into Iowa State notes. You're locked again, though.
Damn it. Okay, there we go. All right.
Let's get through these picks. Let me start recording again. All right, we're rolling back. We got Scott. I think that's the universe telling us that they don't want us to give you guys picks.
Yeah.
It doesn't want us.
Yeah. Last week I was 8-10, and 11. Now we did have, as typical as these go, we did have a couple that
Scotty is locked up again. Matt Campbell has led the Cyclones to 54 wins, second only to Dan McCarney's 56 wins. Did you know? Got a text message here from T-Mobile trying to sell me shit. What else can we read for you guys while we wait for Scott to unlock? Well, now he's coming back in. Let's see if we can get him in. Nope, not yet. Oh, there he is. He's back.
All right.
We'll go get it. We're back. Sorry. The people on the podcast won't, I've been able to pause on the podcast, so you won't see as much of the hiccups technically as we had today, as you do on YouTube. But I've been reading game notes to the people on YouTube while you've been rebooting. So people have facts now.
All right. Fax machines, huh?
Matt Campbell is 4 wins behind Dan McCarney.
Yeah. He's right there. So this will be put him another one situation. Well, let me get through this quick before I get, All right. My Fighting Leathernecks are at Indiana on Friday night. Minus.
Didn't they get whooped last week? Or no, they whooped, or did they do the whipping of Eastern Illinois? What happened in that game?
Indiana?
No, Eastern Illinois and Western Illinois last week.
Oh, they played Northern Illinois.
Oh, okay. I got my directional Illinois mixed up.
Yeah, there's at least 4 of them, but they play for the goodest boy of them all, and it was like a animal shelter thing, cool. Because they got the Huskies and the Leatherneck, which was a bulldog. So yeah, it was they got pounded, of course. they haven't won in a couple of years. They didn't win a game last year, so so yeah, they're always
so they go to Illinois or go to Indiana this week.
Yeah, minus 38.5 with the Hoosiers, and as much as I want my Leathernecks to win, I still got to go with IU because I think Kirk Cignetti is one of those where, hey, there's 30 seconds left and we're on the 4-yard line. We're going to still try to score. So I'm going to go with the Hoosiers.
Agreed. Throw the points on that one.
Yeah. Fascinating game at a really good location. I don't know if I'll watch that though, or Green Bay, Philadelphia on Friday. Duke at Northwestern. Northwestern is favored by 2.5 at their home. I'm going to go with the Wildcats.
I'm with you. I'll take Northwestern as well.
I picked against them last week and I was wrong, and I'm sorry.
New coaching staff at Duke and
new
quarterback and on the road, and I'm going to give and then Northwestern has that home field advantage.
Yes. It's a beautiful field, isn't it? I might see at some point this year. I don't know, but Akron at Rutgers, given up 22.5. Akron was able to beat the spread against Ohio State by a couple of points, which again was a bad one for us. But Rutgers minus 22.5. I'm going with the Scarlet Knights. I'm throwing the points.
All right, we're in lockstep for the first 3 because I'll take the State University of New Jersey as well.
Exactly. All right, round 4. We got Bowling Green at Pennsylvania State University. throwing 34.5, and I'm going to take Bowling Green because that is a high number. And this could be after a big emotional win at West Virginia. I think Penn State wins decisively, but 34.5 is one that makes me go, yeah, I don't know about that one.
I'm going to take Penn State. If it was 35.5, I might balk at it, but I'm going to go with them winning by 5 touchdowns.
Okay. Way to go. All right. Game of the day. One of the greatest matchups we'll see in years. Texas at Michigan. Texas on the road throwing 7.5. That's too high of a number for me. Going to Michigan, going to the big house. I think Texas is the better team, but 7.5, they're not that good. I'm going with the Wolverines.
That hook is nasty, man.
Yeah.
That hook is nasty. I'll take Michigan because of the hook.
Yeah. All right. In Dinkytown, we've got Rhode Island at Minnesota. Minnesota missed 2 chip shot field goals by the Big Ten kicker of the year to cost us a game last week, and I was out that game.
Did you let off the fireworks?
You saw it. I was outside.
I said that to Catherine because she goes, hey, somebody let the fireworks off at the Minnesota game. I said it was probably Scott.
Yeah. Hilarious. It was, North Carolina was a 1.5 favorite, and they won by 2. So crazy. But yeah, I know. I saw that. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? And it's like, everybody's like, oh no, like they're embarrassed again. But Rhode Island at Dinkytown against the Gophers, minus 38.5. I'm going to go with the Gophers. I think it's probably like one of these 45-0 deals.
I'm surprised they even have I guess they have a line on everything.
I found it. I had to go searching for it.
I would assume. Yeah. I'll take Minnesota as well.
Okay.
I know nothing about Rhode Island other than it's a very small state.
Yeah, it's a state that probably shouldn't be a state anymore. But should start combining some of these states and then maybe chopping some other ones,
Not a bad idea.
NorCal, SoCal could be different states.
Yeah.
North Florida, there's no resemblance North Florida to South Florida. Well, it's the farther south you go, the farther north you go in Florida. So, and I'd say Rhode Island, you could probably combine with Massachusetts and Connecticut. And,
maybe Connecticut, because Connecticut's small too.
Yeah.
Bulk up.
Yeah, exactly. Now that we've handled our geography lesson there, Eastern Michigan at Washington, the Huskies minus 24.5. They look better than I thought they would last week, Rob.
He's a good coach.
Yeah, Jed Fish is a good coach. I'm going to go with Washington. I think they can, win something like 34-7, something like that.
Yeah, I'll go with Washington as well. Don't know a ton about Eastern Michigan, but that's a long trip.
Yeah, it is a long trip. The only Big Ten game in action, the Big Ten debut. Michigan State at Maryland. Last week, Michigan State looked good for the first quarter, and then not as good the rest of the way. Won, but didn't look great doing it. Maryland, however, beat UConn decisively. And found a quarterback, I think, and not the one that I expected this year. So I'm going to go with the Terps. I'm even going to give up the 9.5. I know that's a high number in this game, but I'm going to go with Maryland.
I'm with you. I think they win this by 10 to 14 in that range, and it could be worse. I think I didn't get a good feel for Michigan State week 1, like you said. New coach, they just looked after that first quarter, looked discombobulated.
Yeah. Yeah. Florida Atlantic's not a bad G5 program. They competed. And they've got a lot of new players. I mean, they had like 47 guys go to the portal. I mean, it was just really tough. This one is more interesting than I think, we would expect. And that's South Dakota at Wisconsin. Wisconsin minus 22.5. I don't like that number, not based on the way they played against Western Michigan, which was way too competitive than I thought. So I'm going to go with South Dakota. This may be a 28-7, 31-10 game, but I still like, I'll take the 22.5.
Yeah, South Dakota's a good FCS program. They've built that up well. Got a couple of former Hawkeyes on that staff, and Miles Taylor and Stephen Ferentz. They recruit down here quite a bit. Yeah, I kind of like that as well. I'm going to go with the Coyotes, the Yotes.
Yotes. Yotes. All right, here's an interesting game to me, and that's Kansas at Illinois. Kansas on the road -5.5. This one's tough because I think Kansas is the better team, and at home, definitely, and on the neutral site, definitely. On the road, I could almost envision a backdoor cover from Illinois and losing 27-23. It's 5.5 for Kansas.
That's a funky number.
Yeah.
You don't see 5.5 a lot. That is a funky number.
I'm still going to go with KU, but I don't like it. This is one where I feel like it could be 27-16 going in the final minute, and Illinois gets a garbage touchdown and loses 27-23 or something like that.
I'm banking on that. I'll take Illinois.
Okay.
I think they keep it like 3-4 points.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
I can totally see it. So Western Michigan, which had a decent game against Wisconsin, at Ohio State, which didn't cover last week, -38.5. That said, I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think this could be one of those. Okay, Ohio State kind of flexes and gets its chiropractic appointment and back adjusted.
Agreed. I'm not betting against Ohio State at home.
Yeah. Boise State at Oregon. Oregon giving up 19.5. They've had probably the worst of the weeks, other than Minnesota, which lost. They only beat Idaho by 10 points at home. They had a lot of yards, but the 19.5, I don't like that number at all. Boise State has a great running back. I think Oregon wins, but I think Boise State keeps it close.
Yeah, that number is way too high. It makes me think it almost has me saying take Oregon because they, the lines makers know something here. But I think Boise State's a sound program, and that's a lot of points, man. That's too many points. I'll take Boise State.
Yeah. All right. In a game, I wish we could see Spencer Petras, but he's out for a few weeks with an ankle sprain. At USC, Utah State at USC giving up 28.5. I'm going to go USC. They were the most impressive team in the Big Ten to me. I watched them and went, okay, they've got something here. I wasn't sure defensively how they would compete against LSU. I thought that they would be like they were last year. No, they have fixed a lot of things. They looked the part.
He's a good coordinator.
Yeah. He's going to be a head coach soon, Danton Lynn. So I'm going USC, giving up the 28. What about you?
Yep.
All right. Okay, 2 left. It's kind of circling back to these. Colorado at Nebraska. Nebraska -7.5. I'm going to take Colorado. I think that's a high number. I think there's a lot of emotional investment in Nebraska. They had a really good week 1. Colorado has some explosive playmakers, maybe the best athlete in the country, and Travis Hunter, an NFL quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders, like his dad or not. You got to respect that. And, I think if I was to pick outright, I'd probably go Nebraska, but I also think that Colorado can keep this fairly close.
I'm going to, against better judgment here, I'm going to take the Huskers and throwing the 7.5. It seems like Colorado's a little disjointed, the off the field stuff with them and distractions and stuff like that. And I think, I'll do the Lucy football thing again, where I'll buy into Nebraska after week 1 and it'll be pulled away, and Colorado will end up pulling off the upset in this game. But until I get burned, I'm going to take the Huskers and throw the 7.5.
I think Nebraska is a good team. I think I do think that they're not. This isn't, false hope for Frost era stuff. I actually think that they're okay. I just think that Colorado, I did a poll on Twitter yesterday where I'm really interested in what Iowa State fans think. You have to pick one. You can't pick neither, and it's Nebraska and then Colorado / Dion. And they actually, the majority of people, and I know there were Nebraska fans who voted in this, but they put with Nebraska, like 66%. And based on a lot of the feedback I got was, well, this helps us if we want to get to the playoff. If they're good and we beat them, that's rational. I think there's a dislike of Dion and the way he conducts his business, which I think is legit. And so that to me tells me a lot. But I also look and said, we've seen North Dakota State win those games, and the fact that Colorado kept fighting told me enough that they could be competitive. And I don't think they win. I would pick Nebraska like 31-28 type of thing, but I think Colorado keeps it close. All right, last, Iowa State at Iowa. Iowa -3. I think that's kind of a beg to take Iowa. I don't know why, but I'm taking Iowa, and I'm putting the baseline as a touchdown. I think that Iowa can win by a touchdown. I'm going to go with the same score as last year, 20-13. But I actually think that there are a lot of things in this game that could lead me to think that it could be a lot more than that, like a 30-13 if things go right for the Hawkeyes. But based on this number, I'm going to Hawks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if Iowa State wins this game, it's going to be a nail biter, close game. If one team has an opportunity to blow the other out, I definitely think that's Iowa. I think Iowa's the more complete team right now. It's only 1 week though, so we'll see what happens. I've got I saw it at 2.5. 3 is 3 or 3. I've seen both of those numbers, and I think that's kind of where it stayed most of this week. I think people have kind of locked into that number. I'm going to pick Iowa 19, Iowa State 16. I'm going to put it right on that 3 and right on the 35 as well. Scott's got it going under, right?
33, 20-13. But so if let's see, if you're got it at -3, are you picking push?
Yeah. So how do we do that? Is that me just saying it's got to be 3?
Well, that's a heck of a
why not? You only live once. I want to hit it on the nose.
All right, I'm going to go push. I tell you what, if you hit push, then you get +2.
Okay, I'll take that.
Okay.
So even if it's like 23-20.
Yeah.
Okay.
23-20.
I don't have to hit it. I don't have to hit exactly 1960. It just has to be. It has to be 3-point difference.
Yeah, you should be able to get rewarded. I mean, to be able to thread the needle like that. So I'm all for it. And if you don't hit,
it'll just be like everything else. I won't hit all the other games.
Yeah. If Iowa wins by 4, you're screwed. So
what are we going in the net? What was I 8-11? You said
you were 7-11. I was 8-10.
Okay, 7-11, 8-10. Write that down, folks. And this is for entertainment purposes only, right? Yeah. You don't take this to the bank. Do not take these to the bank.
Yeah, not after last week, but but anyway, we hope we threw a little bit of, at least know a little bit on this, but
we'll give us a chance to get into the season before you start banging on us for not making correct picks. We're trying to figure everything out like you guys. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll get another weekend of data this weekend, and a lot of good games going on. We talked about the Big Ten games here when we picked them, but there's a lot of other good games going on around the country as well. 2:30 Central Time, Saturday, CBS. First game on CBS since the Michigan-Iowa game in 1985.
Yeah. First time they've been in Kinnick. It's crazy to think about that. You remember who did the game for them? Well, one you should probably get.
Was it the former Eagles? Tom
Brookshire? No.
Was it Brookshire? No.
It was I think it was Musburger and Ara Parsegian.
Wow. That's cool. There's a little bit of history for you.
Yeah.
But we're going to see a lot of these things with the new TV deals and things like that. But CBS 2:30 Central Time Saturday, Kinnick Stadium. If you're not there, catch it on TV, Hawkeye Radio Network, things like that. Look forward to it. Should be a good game. Please behave yourself. Treat each other kindly. It's only football. I know that some people hear it's only football. It is. It's a game. So just behave yourselves, enjoy your time with family and friends, and enjoy the game. And Scott and I'll be back to talk to you next week. You got anything Looked like you were going to say something.
No, I'm good. Everybody just behave themselves.
Yes. Do the right thing.
Spike.
Yes. And we will talk to you next week on the Hotspot podcast. Thank you to all our sponsors. Thanks, guys, for listening. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Say goodbye, Scott.
Goodbye.